Hello, and welcome to this week's program of the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley. My name is Farheen, and I'm so excited that you all have joined us today. Each week, we connect with and hear from speakers who usually have a message focused on our love for innovation, entrepreneurship, and education. Today, we have a presentation by Nate Salpeter, the co-founder of Sweet Farm. With a PhD working in the nuclear industry, Nate brings his analytical mindset to the animal welfare space, where his wife, Anna Sweet, and an incredible team have built Sweet Farm to be more than only a farm animal rescue, but also to be a place of education, inspiration, and innovation through animal rescue, plant-based agriculture, and technology initiatives to scale change in the food system globally. If you all remember, we invited their Go-To-Meeting program to an online social a few months ago, and it was a ton of fun. So with that said, Nate, please take it away.
Thank you so much. So it's great to be here with you all today. The title of this presentation is Education, Inspiration, and Innovation: How Sweet Farm Impacts More with Less. So Sweet Farm, at a glance, it's a nonprofit organization located near San Francisco. We're dedicated to creating a compassionate and sustainable world through these three pillars of impact. But at a glance, we are a registered 501c3 3C nonprofit. We have over 140 rescued animals currently living at Sweet Farm. We're growing produce through our plant-based agriculture program for around 50 families through our CSA. We have 11 to 12 full-time employees, 11 and a half full-time employees. And as Farheen mentioned, we are the creators of the Go-To-Meeting program, which, just a little update on those numbers. Since the end of March, we have completed around 8,000 of these virtual meetings, reaching over 275,000 people with one-on-one education, being able to answer their questions and help inspire them to take their own actions. Of course, we also support these different initiatives, these impact pillars, through our food, ag, and sustainability technology startups. We're doing everything from field trials to mentorship to connecting them with other investors. We'll get into that a little bit later. But just to kind of highlight, we initially began Sweet Farm focusing on these two areas, addressing areas of animal-based agriculture and educating people on the issues, as well as what they can do in their daily life to really impact the lives of these animals. But that side of the story is incomplete without also talking about where the rest of the world's food comes from, which is, of course, fruits, vegetables, plants, legumes, and whatnot. So Sweet Farm felt it was really important to take a systematic approach to addressing these systems. So if you don't have a systems point of view, it's kind of like changing the timing belt on your car and expecting a new car to show up. That's just not the way it works. You really need to have this broader point of view. So what better way to start addressing these systems than to get our hands in the soil and start understanding them at their roots? So just to highlight, Sweet Farm is located south of San Francisco, right here on the coast. There is a little bit of history to the property. So originally, the barn, so you can see it here on the right, it was built about 170 years ago. It was built originally as a dairy barn. Then during the 1930s, it was actually used as part of this artichoke farm. So the upper right photo was actually taken by Dorothea Lange, and it is in the Library of Congress. So really cool piece of history. On the upper left, that's directly across the road from us. That's a famous beach, Tanitas Creek Beach. But I highlighted this barn really quickly because as anyone who's local knows, we had a massive windstorm yesterday. So I just wanted to share with you some of these recent events. So a major portion of the barn was collapsed when we had a major wind event. So we're looking at a uphill battle of getting this thing repaired. So if any of you know anyone, we can connect, after the call here today. Now, so I'll highlight a few of the rescues. We have, these individual rescues on the farm that each one tells a story, that is really on behalf of not millions, but billions of animals like them that don't have a voice. So Kevin, the pig, he's actually, this is Sweet Pea. This is Sweet Pea on the left-hand side. She actually escaped from a factory farm and was picked up in the Santa Cruz Mountains, running around as a piglet. You can see the notches on her ears. Those are part of the international notching system. This is kind of what is used for identifying individual pigs within individual litters. And it kind of goes to show, how animals in the food system are viewed much differently than your own dog or cat, right? They're numbers, they're not individuals. Even though pigs are actually smarter than dogs and cats, they actually have the intelligence level of a 3 to 4-year-old human. Now, Argyle, the steer here sitting with me, he was actually rescued out of a dairy farm that was switching over their operation. So really lucky, such a sweet animal. And so steers, they'll actually live 20 to 22 years. So all of these animals will live their entire lives out at Sweet Farm. This is Izzy and Frizzy. They are two white broad-breasted turkeys that were rescued from a factory farm actually the day before Thanksgiving last year. So you can see them huddled in the corner. This was the day they came in, the day they came into Sweet Farm, completely terrified of any humans. And then you can see them on the right there. That's how they look today, just absolutely at ease with people and just happy to be living their life out at Sweet Farm. We also do these plant-based agriculture programs. Of course, these photos were from pre-COVID, so you don't see people with their masks on, but we engage with the community in a number of ways. So we're planting out produce, we're teaching people how to grow their own food, whether you have a sunny window, a yard, or a farm of your own. We're doing corporate engagements where companies get out, get their hands in the soil, and then we do our education programs around that. On the getting into the tech side of things, we do work with a whole bunch of different companies and we engage them in different ways. Sometimes we're doing field trials where they're testing out their cutting edge technologies to really transform the way the world feeds itself. Other times we're actually connecting these entrepreneurs with investors and some of the largest food and agriculture investors in the world. So down here on the right, this is Arturo. He's the CEO of Clara Foods, which is one of the most innovative companies in the world. Really, they're actually producing eggs without a single chicken. So really, really interesting technology. And the implications are huge. And here he is presenting to a big group of investors that came up from Brazil and came out to the farm and were pitching to we're interacting with these different entrepreneurs. So it's a really easy way for Sweet Farm to connect the tech and the people, that have that scale, the ability to scale these technologies. We connect them in a way that has some credibility because we are actually like these big companies, these big agriculture producers, we too have our hands in the soil. So we actually understand this. It's not just a boardroom out in Silicon Valley. It is much smaller scale. I think the smallest farmer that came out, his farm was around 50,000 acres. The largest, I think, had like 1 million or 2 acres. So these farmers, they certainly have the right ties to help these technologies scale. We also do things like our innovation dinner. We brought in 30 founders from everything from stealth mode companies all the way up through one of our friends, one of the co-founders of Oatly, the whole spectrum. We have these entrepreneurs that came in, then we bring in a whole bunch of investors that do not invest in this space yet, sit them down for a dinner, feature a bunch of the products, many of them not even released. And it's a very easy way for us to turn a dinner that costs a few $1,000s to put on, and it results in these investors getting so excited that they end up putting millions and millions of dollars into these new technologies that stand to change the world. So that is like one prime example of how Sweet Farm is taking very focused efforts to really impart change. Now, it really focuses on a key thing, creating an ecosystem, right? So we have this ecosystem that supports new ideas. It supports existing companies. It supports big farms, companies that want to come in, just engage their employees for education. It's really just about creating this amazing space. So that's what we've been doing from the beginning. So it really comes down to points of entry. Making it so that regardless of who you are, your age, your background, um, making it a place that you can really call your own. So creating those points of entry. We also throw convention out the window. We try lots and lots of things. Many of the ideas don't work, but many of them do. We then build on the ones that do work and continue to evolve them. We also focus on complementing the work of others, not competing, and we also follow the data, right? Where are the trends? What's impactful? And where can we really put our effort? So on the technology side, for instance, building on programs that are working. Over the years, we've been working with a lot of incredible companies that, of course, our time is an investment. So we due diligence our time and how we spend those efforts. In the process, my wife and I have personally placed several investments in some of these companies. And we'll talk a little bit about those really quickly here. So I'm going to skip over some of the stuff about the nitrogen cycle. This gets into it, but it is relevant to one of the companies we work with. Essentially, you see these big cycles of how nutrients in the soil impact fish kills and how it goes into crops and the air. But one thing that's missing from it is humans, right? So humans are not part of that previous cycle. And the reality is that humans are creating 3.3 billion tons a year of biomass, right? So surprise, surprise, we are part of the ecosystem. So accounting for that is really a key point. So that said, we do know a lot about pathogens and antibiotics and pharmaceuticals that are in human biomass. So obviously we can't put it directly back out onto crops. However, now it just turned to charcoal. I don't know if you saw that color change. If you do what's called pyrolyzing it, you burn it at a high temperature with no oxygen, you actually break down all of those things into their individual elements, and you're left with a carbon structure that has a lot of ecological benefits. So one of the companies that we've been doing field trials with for the last 4 years is a company called Bioforce Tech. So they have the most advanced system in the world. They developed this technology to actually be self-sustaining. So normally this process requires a lot of gas, a lot of electricity. It's very carbon positive. It pumps lots of greenhouse gases into the air. This company is actually self-sustaining. So once you get those carbon structures, it has a lot of benefits to add it back into the soil to improve the soil health. By doing that, you also create a carbon sink. So you're now pulling CO2 out of the system and then sequestering it. So here we are with not just the founders of the company, but also a local municipality. We were celebrating with some strawberries grown with the biochar, and because we were closing essentially landing a new contract for another facility to be integrated in with another municipality. So big celebration there, which we celebrated with some of the best strawberries out there. So here's just an example of where biochar is used. It's been used for many, many years, hundreds, if not thousands of years in Brazil. Brazil is like the traditional biochar soil mecca. When people talk about such good soil in Brazil, it's actually because of biochar. But of course, now we have to use new technologies to do it better and safer. So that's where Bioforce Tech comes in. We've done field trials with Wild Earth, which was featured on Shark Tank. So we actually used farm waste from, plants that were no longer viable for our CSA program. We would send them over to Wild Earth, and they'd see if they could create high-grade proteins using fermentation and some other really advanced biotech approaches. So a really great company, and what Wild Earth is doing with their animal-free dog foods, which has a lot of benefits, actually. This project was really cool. What we were doing, so you see on the left, there's this net with some water dripping off of it. We were actually doing a water collection test. This net here was, at the time, the most advanced fog collection net in the world. It had nanotechnology on it. So each one of these fibers has properties that attract water and repel water. So you actually get these little beads of water and then it streams off of it. So it has much higher efficiency of collecting water. And the premise behind this is, in places where there's foggy climates but drought conditions, you can set these nets up, collect water where it's needed. So that way women and children, they don't have to spend their day going back and forth to a water source. And instead they can go get educations, they can get jobs. So really interesting tests. So we set those up at Sweet Farm, collected water through about a season and a half, got a lot of amazing data. At the end, by the way, that test, it was paid for by Hangar One Vodka, and they actually turned it into their very first pilot of their Fog Point vodka, which is their premier label, the proceeds of which do go to water conservation efforts. So really cool, fun project that we did with them. Another one that we've done, it looks like all we do is produce alcohol. Of course, this is Dr. Hop's kombucha beer. So we grew strawberries for them. So they're producing this kombucha beer that has, high levels of B12, B12 and probiotics and all these other benefits, but a little bit more fun. So that's a interesting partnership that we have with them. Now this gets into like the really far-looking science. We've done 2 years of field trials with a company called Interplant with the USDA as well. And they're actually producing plants and sensors that can detect within a matter of hours if there are if there's pest stress, nutrient stress, fungal stress, because the plants will actually release a pheromone, a defense mechanism, as soon as that action happens. Well, ordinarily, it takes a matter of weeks for a farmer to actually be able to see it with his or her own eyes. But Interplant is able to do this detection within hours. So if you think about a farm that has 100,000 acres, if you can't detect a fungus for a matter of weeks, over the course of the weeks, that spreads to hundreds, if not thousands of acres due to the winds. Whereas if you can detect it immediately by flying a drone over and using their sensors, you can then use one of these new fancy tractors and hit the problem where it is and knock it out before it becomes a bigger problem. So of course that drastically reduces the need for herbicides, pesticides, fungicides. So really amazing technology. We did their very first field trials 2 years ago, and then second year this year. So I'm also an advisor for this company as well. So they're just doing incredible stuff. Sheok Meets. This is even more forward-looking than some other companies. They are growing shrimp, crab, and lobster without a single animal. So growing meat without an animal. So my wife, who you see there on the right, and myself on the left, we're joined with the two founders. So that's Sandhya and Kai Yi, both female founders from Singapore, who started it, and then our friend and fellow board member, Ryan Bethencourt there. This group right here was the founding group for Sheok Meets. So Ryan, Anna, and myself, we wrote the very first check into Sheok Meets. This last year, they were ranked as one of the top most forward-looking food tech startups in Asia. So really amazing stuff. Stands to eliminate the need for antibiotics. The crustacean industry, it can be very environmentally destructive. So very interesting, not to mention things like microplastics and whatnot that you find in them. So now we talk about Turtle Tree Labs, also in Singapore. My wife and I also placed the very first investment in this company. They are producing milk without a single animal. They're actually starting with this is really out there, human breast milk. Now you might say, why human breast milk, right? Well, they're not saying don't breastfeed kids. That's absolutely the best thing for them to do. But there's many women in the world who can't, either because they're physiologically they can't, or maybe they live in a place where their own breast milk is toxic to their infant. So that's actually a big problem up in the Arctic Circle, for instance. Well, there is a $50 billion market per year that is feeding cow milk to human babies. Human babies need human milk, right? That has the best nutrient profile for them. So they're actually able to do that. And not to mention the fact that they can produce any mammalian milk. So they could produce snow leopard milk for recovering, wildlife that there's no way to, when you're rehabilitating these exotic animals from the brink of extinction, they actually have the technology that can actually help with that. So really amazing company. They actually just placed first place in the Entrepreneurship World Cup out of over 175,000 companies from 200 countries. So really, really amazing. Awesome founding team. So there's Fengru Lin on the right, joined by her co-founder, Max Fry. So awesome folks. And then also Prince Khalid Al Walid is right there, second from the left. So he's known as the Vegan Prince, and he's also an advisor and investor in their company as well. Clara Foods, once again, producing eggs without a chicken, right? So how does Sweet Farm fit into this? Not only have we been helping them with fundraising efforts, they also need to do comparisons of their proteins with that of actual chickens. So of course we have over 80 chickens that have been rescued from a variety of situations, everything from rooster fighting to factory farms and abuse and abandonment. But they still lay eggs, right? So what do we do with those eggs? Well, one of the things that we do is we take those eggs and we bring them to Clara Foods so that when they're doing all of their research and development, they are still able, they can actually use the eggs from our rescued chickens to do their comparisons, right? Rather than going to the store, buying and supporting factory farms, they know that these are coming from respected and cared for animals. So really kind of fun partnership with them. Geltor is another company that we were fortunate to be investors and supporters of through Sweet Farm and my wife and I personally. They're producing collagen without a single animal, so they can actually produce. So typically, collagen is rendered down from animal parts, and that's what ends up getting refined and used in high-end cosmetics. Geltor can actually do this through fermentation. So they brew collagen just like you brew beer with very specially designed yeast bacteria that they've produced. And they can actually produce this collagen at around 250th of the cost. So 250 times less than it costs for those super expensive collagens that you find in those creams. So for anyone who has purchased those really expensive face creams or lotions with collagen, it's very, very expensive. It's because a kilogram of collagen for cosmetics costs around $50,000 per pure kilogram. They can produce it for around $50 per kilogram, right? And not just that, it's a higher quality. They can also produce human collagen, right? We're not, as a species, rendering down the dead for cosmetics. There's only one other way to do it, and it's through a company like this. So very amazing work that they're doing. Very excited to support them through Sweet Farm, through our different technology programs and initiatives, getting them involved in, with investors and influencers, and then also on the investment side. So as a whole, right? How did we get into this, right? Where did it all start? It started because we initially wanted to address these issues around animal-related issues by also addressing, the plant side of things and the tech spaces. And it was building upon them that we really created this ecosystem that has allowed us to interact with these amazing companies and really drive towards a global impact through these companies, through these initiatives like Goat to Meeting. And what is kind of on the horizon? What's next? A lot of people always ask, okay, so you've built, this ecosystem. Well, the next thing is I've spent the last 5 months working with an amazing team that we're actually building out a climate tech fund. So that is outside of the nonprofit side of things. But Snowcap, so I'm one of the general partners for Snowcap. We are investing in the unleashing of the planet and people. So we're doing climate tech and wellness because if you can't heal people, how can you expect to also heal the planet at the same time? So that's kind of next on the horizon as well. But with that, I want to thank you. I know I went over on my time, but I really appreciate you all having Sweet Farm and me on behalf of an amazing team at Sweet Farm come and talk to your group today.
Nate, thank you so much for your very wonderful presentation. So before I get to our question and answer, I wanted to introduce the members on call. So we have Rory from Houston, Sandy in Fremont, Shags in Walnut Creek, Rushton in San Jose, and then Nick, who is in British Columbia. So Rushton, you had a question. Go ahead.
So yeah, well, I got tons of questions, but I'll try to limit it to one or one and a half. So the Goat to Meeting was my introduction to Sweet Farm, and I'd had it in my head that there was this kind of poor little animal sanctuary that was trying to figure out something, that it needed to keep going, and somebody came up with the idea and it just took off. I'd be interested in the larger story maybe of that, as well as how successful it's been in terms of financially for Sweet Farm. But after your presentation, I'm bought into the idea that there was a load of conversation around innovation and approaching how to deal with business challenges that I did not appreciate before. So thanks for that detail.
Absolutely. Well, fantastic question. And yeah, so let's see where to start. So Goat to Meeting. So I'll back up into 2019, 2018. What did Sweet Farm do on a normal year, right? So on a normal year, we're growing food for a few tens of families through our CSA program, and that partially supports, the role of our, amazing farmers that we have. So we currently have 3 amazing female farmers, one of whom's an economics major as well. So these kind of programs partially support the work. So we try and build our organization to be self-sustaining and be able to support itself, really. In addition to that, we're also based in Silicon Valley. So we have groups that are very interested in doing things like offsites. So these are social groups, these are corporate groups. So this is a very important part of how Sweet Farm is able to simultaneously, achieve our education and inspiration missions by getting them out to the farm. In many cases, depending on who we're having out, some groups aren't able to pay, some groups are able to support. So we like to make it accessible. That's a big part of who we are, is making these programs accessible to wide ranges of individuals, not just the Googles and the Facebooks and the whoever's. We want it to really span that whole range. So when COVID, when the lockdowns and all that kind of stuff started happening, we had to figure out how are we going to still simultaneously execute on our mission, communicating with people, telling the stories, telling them what they can do in their daily lives, while also making it sustainable, able to support the programs and also accessible. So some people are able to support a higher amount, some people not at all necessarily. So Goat to Meeting started it was March 25th. We had an emergency board meeting, and we were trying to say, like, how can we do this? And one of our board members, and he's also a partner at this new venture fund, he said, I sit in these video calls all the time. There must be a better way to build social capital with my team, put smiles on people's faces during a stressful time, but also leave people with something, some tangible education and next steps. So how can we do that? And he said, well, I would totally pay $100 for you guys to show up to my company happy hour, or show up to my next coffee break that I throw for my engineering team, and tell us a little bit about them, and go off. So we put it live that same night, and by the very next day we had one random reservation that showed up. So I went out into the field with my cell phone, and I recorded not record, I went live with them, and I said, hey, here's Brownie the goat, and here's his story, and did you know, and also, like, have y'all tried oat milk, those kind of things. I kind of like layer in these things, and I got off the phone with them. I said, wow, okay, I haven't seen people smile that much on a video call ever. And also, like, maybe there's something here. So by the time I get back up to the house, my wife and some of our other team members start telling me, yeah, we already have like 2 or 3 more reservations for tomorrow. Like, you're already starting to fill up. By the next day, we're booking a couple days out. A week out, we're already booking 7 days into the future. So at the height of it, it became so popular that, first of all, there's 2 things that were great. One was, we were capturing this really kind of new audience into the animal welfare space, right? It's not, especially, I don't know if you remember, there's that show Tiger King that came about right at the same time that we launched. Tiger King was on the rise. So there was this big concern around, animal exploitation, individuals that are exploiting their animals. So being able to capture this new space for the animal welfare movement, controlling the message, controlling the fact that these animals are being respected and cared for, not abused. It was an amazing moment. The timing was, it really came down to timing. So at the peak of it, we were probably doing several hundred calls per day. Not just us, but we actually had to bring in 10 other sanctuaries that were helping with these education visits. And that actually helped them stay financially afloat. So overall, the program raised well over $1 million. But that was distributed across a bunch of amazing organizations doing a bunch of amazing work. So it wasn't just Sweet Farm that was able to benefit and support the work that we do, but all of our amazing partners.
That's amazing, Nate. So, since we're just about run out of time, I will close up the recording. But of course, the benefits of being on the live recording is that you get to stay after and ask more questions. I know that Nick and Sandy both have some things to ask you. So with that said, Rotary members and guests, please make sure you fill out the attendance section and leave us a comment. And thank you again, Nate, and I will turn it back to you for the final word.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having us join, and both for having us join with our Goat to Meeting program in a previous session, but also for being able to talk to you all today. My parting piece of encouragement is take that first step in terms of, if you're not already eating plant-based, maybe it's just trying oat milk in your coffee. Maybe it's trying to offset, have 1 day per week where maybe you're going plant-based. If it's going if it's doing it for the environment, your health, or the animals, it doesn't really matter. Like we're super happy to support for whatever reason you might be doing that. But it's really about taking that first step, progress over perfection. And you can always reach out to us as a resource. And please visit us at sweetfarm.org. You can learn about the work we do, our different partners, and stay in touch.
Thank you so much, and we will see you all next week.